Hey everybody, David here. So, next build. Um, I've decided I need a little bit of a palette cleanser. The cruciform sort of burnt me out in the context of big builds. I mean, big builds. Um, and it's looking like my next project maybe Windsor Castle, and if you look it up, it's ginormous. The complex, the extra bits, the just the lump in the middle with the round palace part, the round castle part, and the terraforming involved. Just that one bit is going to take ages. So I thought, I want to do something fun and not particularly hard or big. I mean, relatively, in relation. And one of my earliest happy memories is going to the Auckland Museum, the Auckland War Memorial Museum. It is a very pretty building. It is not on a diagonal. um, and I thought, why not? This is my plotting for the size and ish where I want to put it. So it's pretty big, but not, cruciform big. Obviously, I'm gonna have to put the actual building. That's just a mock-up of me working out how big it is and where to put windows and structures and stuff. That's just what I consider to be the front of it. The rest of it will go that way. So it doesn't actually matter how big it is that direction. This direction is because there's a section, the nearest section of the city, the rest of the city, which goes, I think it's 1 kilometre that way as it slowly loads. It's another almost kilometre that way, and that direction is where the cruciform is, and UCL and the tower building, and it's like 4 kilometres that way, full of build. So I wanted to pick a relatively good area that's blank, which this absolutely is, and I wanted it to be close to sort of swanky things, because this greenhouse, which I still haven't quite finished, I've got to try and get these domes, mixed domes where you mash two domes together, confuses my brain, so it takes a little while. And the centre of town is actually sort of there-ish. The park is on the other side. You can see some of the greenery there. So it's pretty close to the centre of town, pretty close to Parliament, pretty close to the cathedral. Can't quite see, it's a few blocks away from the tower and Rose Road and some of the other places. But it's in the middle of town and it's close. I thought, because this is sort of, I imagine the story for this was a very rich landowner made this ginormous greenhouse to grow food or pretty plants or something. I don't know what ridiculously rich people do with ginormous greenhouses, but I thought it would be cool. And so parts of their territory, parts of their original grounds, kind of went that way. Theoretically, with the current story history, because this isn't in the story, the cathedral would have been a part of that, those lands, those territory, big chunks of land that this rich family owned. So I was thinking it could have once been like a proper stately house, and then donated to be a museum. That's, from my understanding, what the Auckland Museum's history is as well. The biggest thing, I always bite off more than I can chew. But I'm going to have to actually do quite a lot of terraforming, which, as you can see, I'm not particularly experienced at. But I'll give it a go, because, why not? And I can always fix it if I screw it up. Because the actual Auckland Museum is on the top of a ginormous hill. And I'm not going to make a hill. I'm going to leave that for Windsor Castle, because there's a hill in the middle of that. It's going to take ages. It's 15 meters tall. So, but this one, you have sort of a road, and then some steps, and then a flat area with a mural in it, and then some more steps, and then a loading zone that's kind of two-lane road wide, and then some more steps into the actual building. So I'm hoping this section is, I might have to change where the increases in height are to match, to match it, but I think this is a good place to start, and that's how wide it's going to be. It's going to be, I think, 2 or 3 2/3 longer, but there's nothing out there but flat world. I think that might even be early flat world, actually, because there's sections that weren't loaded before that are without grass, so I don't even know what version of flat world that is. Early, either way. So, enough of me mattering on. Now I have a story and an idea and a relatively short build. It should only be 1 or 2 episodes. I shall get started, and you get to see it the fast way. So, wish me luck, and cue the music. And welcome back. So I've done the outline and the approach. There's actually a few things in this section in real life that I haven't figured out how to do yet, which is why there's a placeholder block in the middle of the thing. I started just doing this bit because it was pretty, and I was just trying to figure out how to do the rest of it. But it's it's quite a nice sort of walk, and because it's a war memorial, there's quite a lot of plaques around in the real one, like everywhere. And there isn't really a way of doing plaques, because they're often just like a block on the floor. But I wanted to do this just because it doesn't look terribly much like the actual one, but the pillar is a memorial pillar for World War I and II. And this block here is actually pretending to be a wreath. There's a wreath carved into the monument, as a monumenty thing. I can't remember what that is, but I tried to get as many details as possible. The math of getting enough blocks, it's not balanced, but that was a little irritating, which is why there was so much video of this. I don't know how much I'll actually keep into the fully edited replay with music, the montage, because I did it over and over and over and didn't get the symmetry right, and then I had to redo it, and it was ages. But I'm quite happy with how it feels. And the standard in this game is that half blocks that are longer than three blocks long, are ramps, because you can't do ramps in Minecraft. It doesn't work. So this is the real accessibility that exists at the location. Now obviously I just got the frame done because I needed to see how big it was going to be, and just going by my normal conversion practices, which is basically I don't even know how to explain it. I imagine a door is 1 meter wide. It's technically 80 centimeters, but we pretend it's 1 meter wide. And so anything human-sized is 1 meter by 2 meters. And so I just basically try and do it that way. And it often comes up actually smaller than the real thing, like with the cruciform and UCL quad, but it will be a usable scale if I want to use it as a backdrop or as a set for any of the movies, or even for me to walk through and help as a setting for a scene if I'm writing. But it is really, really, really quite big. I knew it was big, but I didn't realize it was this kind of big. This round thing that I thought was only like maybe 30 centimeters in diameter, it's 64. If this was a complete circle, it's 64 in diameter. Hate those things. They're only good for getting leads, and often crack ice if you don't live in an ice biome. So it is so big. My render distance at this moment is, I think, 20 or 22 chunks. That it takes up a good chunk of 22 chunks. So it's huge. I haven't actually counted the distance. In fact, we can probably do that right now. So 5.3 negative 8.5. Okay, so negative 8.05 all the way to the front. up over the frame and the monument to the front. It's ish 300 blocks long. Wow. So yes, it's big, and as always, I have bitten off a little bit more than I intended to chew, but that's okay. There's a lot of complicated bits and pieces in and on the building, on the map, on Google Maps. So I'm actually going to leave doing the building parts. I'm probably going to do one wing at a time, and continue this episode by doing sort of the landscaping, adding in grass and the roads and stuff that go right around the building, because in real life you actually enter through the domain. There's actually a big park and a pretty tall hill that it's built on, and you come in from sort of this way. I think it's this way, related to this, not actual north. I don't actually know what direction it is, but you come in from the back and you end up sort of going the whole way around the building at a distance on the road, all the way around. I believe this is a drop-off zone only, but it is actually a road. I think it's cobbled, which is why I used the tough block. And you continue going around, and then this bit here is actually the road, not the black. This bit is a single lane road, which I think is also a drop off. So there's lots of sort of driveways, and the ground goes around the building in a particular way. There's more ramps down here. And actually this side, here-ish, the ground floor, this bit here goes up to here-ish. So there's going to be a lot of terraforming to do in the second half, which I'm not entirely looking forward to, but I've got to learn how to do terraforming if I want to become a serious builder, like, of many different things. I'm obviously pretty practiced at buildings, so there's quite a lot more to do. I mean, it's only stage 1. Stage 1 is framing, so I get a sense of the scale. And next I'll obviously frame sort of where I want the roads to be and cut out the old roads, which is frustrating because I spent days and days and days doing all of these roads everywhere. Because I originally made the roads, it was so early in Minecraft that I originally started making the roads out of coal, because it was the only black brick, the only black block. And then of course, after having done a 2.5 meter by 2.5 kilometer by like 600 meter wide city with all the roads, I then had to go through and try and, you know, replace it with black concrete. And usually as an expression of my frustration about that situation, I don't know if you noticed in the montage, I actually light the coal roads on fire. It's just a little bit of a squirt of revengeance. It's also faster, and you don't have to do any work. You just let it burn, and then you cut out all the bits that the fire missed. So I've redone most of these in concrete. That's concrete, yep, no details. So I'm going to have to rip all of this out and redo it, which is mouldy annoying. And I'll probably have to add in extra land so that the back of the building isn't floating. But I'll probably make the approach not from over there, because there's nothing over there, sort of from the side, or even just be boring and actually make this a road. My original plan was to cut off and make this one smaller. So cut this section of this road out to this corner, turn these 3 blocks into a park, which doesn't take a lot. Obviously I have to rip out my redstone contraction, which didn't work. So then there's, the block that it's on and the blocks around it can be park, and there'll be only one approach. Possibly this back road. It's right along the edge of the hill front. So like you have to go up there and then here and around to get to the front road. Or I might take pity on people and just, I don't know, make it easily accessible. I'm not entirely sure. I think there's a lot of permissions and stuff involved in why there's no direct route up to the front of the building in real life, because the domain's on a lot of the land in Auckland is sort of like under treaty claim, or has limitations for preservation circumstances. All the trees in the domain and around this building are quite old, so maybe they didn't put a direct route because it would have to bowl down a bunch of trees or cross conservation land, or I don't know. But I don't have to do that because this is digital and I'm controlling it. So the next half of this, I will try and do some plotting, do the outlining for where the roads are, where the green is, where the hill actually gradiates up, where to put park things and where to put not park things, all that sort of stuff. Although it might be interesting to have a massive park around a building, because, it looks pretty good in Auckland. Granted, the hill is a lot steeper than this one. Right, so we are back to montage mode. So, cue the music. and welcome back. Um, as you can see, just putting in the gardens and most of the roads, it is literally the width of my my load distance, which is quite a lot. If you're detail oriented, you would have noticed that there was quite a jump in progress from what's in the montage to this. I had a few rough days, which are actually still currently rough days, and I forgot to press the replay mod to record, and I did all of the grass, like all of this from this line here all the way up to the road, which will load. There we go. Just placing down grass. And I realized that I hadn't. Sometimes if I've only done it, like if I've forgotten to press the record button and it's been, 5 minutes, I'll undo what I've done and then redo it on camera. But no. And then I realized most of what was left was the same sort of thing, like just adding in grass, like this whole grass section. And this road was kind of dull. It's just a road. The only bit that I do regret that I actually forgot to record, and it was probably good that I didn't, because it took me 2 days to decide to surrender. The circular road, I don't know if you can see what I can see, but it's squint. Damn thing, squint. The whole thing. The road, the footpath, the balcony bit, and this outline of the outside of the building. It's all squint. This line is the middle of the building, but the middle of the outside of the circle is 2 blocks, not 1. So the whole thing's squint, and I got to this point when I realized how squint. And this is when my DBT training kicked in, and I went, okay, I'm just going to have to accept radical acceptance. Think of all the sort of stereotypical just zen it or whatever euphemisms you want. And I thought, well, I could spend another week trying to get this thing working properly, or I could accept the fact that it's crooked, and it's okay. The thing that annoys me actually the most is not the squint, it's if you go quite tall, that section and that section are narrower, and I'm not entirely sure why. I did actually use a program to try and get my numbers right, but I must have done something wrong. But it's been quite a fibro flare-up, so my brain fog has been kicking the snot out of me, so that's okay. My next task, obviously, is to start the actual building. That will be the next episode. Some of the problem is that on the inside, I know for a fact that there's at least 3 levels, but on the outside there's only two sort of lines of windows. And this building's been sort of added onto and modified and stuff since it was built in 1929. I found a link, a video sort of on the basic architecture of the building, and if I haven't already mentioned it, I'll put a link in the description to that, so you can actually see the real life one. So the problem is figuring out how tall it actually is, or at this scale how tall it is. It'll probably be not as tall as the real thing, but that's okay. That's sort of the static. It always seems to happen if I try and base something on real life. It ends up being about 2/3 the actual size, or in the case of the tower, which is that way, it's about 1/4 the size. But yeah, so I'm going to do the outside. I haven't decided on whether I should do the inside or not, because even if you take out all of the exhibits and stuff and just have the floor plan, it's quite complicated, and I would probably have to go up to Auckland and take photos of different levels and to try and get the right scale and get it in my head so I could do it justice. And while there are ramps absolutely everywhere and there's elevators and stuff, I don't actually have a wheelchair. I mean, I'm not generally an ambulatory wheelchair user unless it's a big thing. Like when I was going to the cons, our version of Comic-Con is Armageddon, the Armageddon Expo. I had the first one. I had a wheelchair because I couldn't walk more than about 20 meters. At the moment, I've only got a walking frame or a mobility scooter, and even if we could figure out how to get my mobility scooter up to Auckland, which would take a lot, I don't know if they'd allow it inside, because there's a lot of, very old, valuable, historical artifacts. I would just die of shame if I accidentally hit something and broke something that was like, hundreds of years old. But I can't walk the whole distance. It's too far, even with the walking frame. So it may not be feasible for me to be able to do the floor plan, because I've got the floor plan, like this is in this area and that is in this area, but there's no floor plan that shows elevation, where steps are, how far up the stairs go, the vertical distance of things, and it's very uppy downy, using technical terms. But the next video will definitely be the outside. I will make a guess about the size and height and where the windows are and stuff like that. I will probably not make a lot of effort to make the ceiling, the roof, quite as detailed as the real life one, because it is very detailed, and Google Maps is not particularly detailed on roofs. But hopefully this will be less getting frustrated and wanting to bash my head in than the roads were. I surrender to circular roads. It's official. Although I did manage to do these corners relatively well. Mostly. Still don't like that one, but it was hard. Anyway, time to stop talking. So, I shall see you next week, hopefully. This week is a little bit late, because my ISP decided to disconnect my internet because I owed them $16. I'm not resentful. Not at all. No, not resentful at all. But we shall try and get a relatively nice view. Just try not to make it look like he's hovering. Wow, there we go. So, until next time, Ara ni hasa.